Good afternoon, everybody. I see a few folks are still filing in, but maybe it's time to get started. Good afternoon. Thank you for everyone who's joining us in the room and on the phone. I'm Mary Lehman. I will be introducing today's speaker. I am Vice President of Finance and the Treasurer of Amgen, and I'm pleased to be an executive advisor to the We2 organization who is sponsoring this event, and pleased to be introducing today's speaker. So Michael Veltri is a leadership expert, and I've spent some time with Michael here this morning, and I've also spent some time on his website, and what comes out first and foremost to me is that Michael is a leadership expert and of course focuses on decision-making and how decision-making and the processes around decision-making and even down to the daily decisions we make can influence our success, not only in business and in our careers, but in life, our relationships, everything that we go about doing in our daily life. So Michael, he's got an impressive and diverse background, really diverse. He's worked and succeeded in large Fortune 500 companies. He's been an entrepreneur. I believe I'm right in that he's built, scaled, and sold 3 companies, so quite impressive. He's a decorated veteran of the U.S. Marines, and I think you'll see that experience shapes a lot of who he is today and what he talks about. He's a master black belt in Japanese martial arts, and he's also a cancer survivor, which for us, in the work we do every day in our mission here at Amgen to find life-saving therapies for terrible diseases like cancer is particularly relevant, and I'm sure he'll help us understand how that's shaped, where he is today and the person he is today. So I will stop talking because you didn't come to listen to me, and I'm happy to introduce Michael Veltri.
Thank you, Mary, very much. So decisions. Decisions shape our destiny. Decisions make or break our leadership, our executive presence, and our life. And as Mary mentioned, at the tender age of 17, I had to make a real big decision that shaped my destiny, that shaped my leadership and my executive presence, except we called it command presence back then. Because at the age of 17, I decided to join the Marine Corps. This is 17-year-old Michael scared out of his mind. Okay? And during my Marine training, we got to do all types of unique things, such as hold and throw real live hand grenades. Now, of course, we practice with those fake dummy chunks of metal. And have you guys ever done this? You practice for a big meeting. Maybe you have to give a performance review or have a tough talk with a colleague. You practice it goes fine, and then you try the real thing and it doesn't work out. Okay, well, there it is. I'm holding the live hand grenade. It's my turn to go, and I froze. I forgot what to do. I couldn't remember if it was thumb clip, pull pin, or pull pin, thumb clip, but I am standing there holding a live hand grenade. Now, somehow, I did manage to rip the pin out, and it's go time. Unlike the movies, you can't put the pin back in once it's ripped out. I've got this Marine drill instructor right in my face screaming at me, "Veltri, throw it, throw the grenade." And I've got a big decision to make. 3 choices, right? I make a good decision and choose to throw the grenade, but we know as healthcare professionals, even when we make a good decision, we still have to execute it properly. Because what good is it if I don't throw the hand grenade the right direction, or at the right time, or far enough? Choice number 2, I make a bad decision. Right? I'm so overwhelmed by my fear. Now remember, I'm standing there holding a live hand grenade with the pin ripped out. I've got this drill instructor screaming at me, purposefully driving up my fear, distracting me. Or what about my ego? I've got 30 of my Marine buddies watching, and I don't want to look bad in front of them. My fear and ego shackle me. I make a bad decision, dropping the hand grenade, killing myself, killing and injuring my Marine buddies. And then there's always the 3rd choice, where I neither make a good decision and throw it, or make a bad decision and drop it, get it over with, but I do what? Right? I choose to make no decision. And I have to hold on to that hand grenade, suffering for the rest of my life. So let me ask you, how many of the decisions in your business and personal life are like that? Now, I did work up the courage to throw that hand grenade. Nobody was injured, and I went on, as Mary said, to have an 8-year career in the Marine Corps that I'm very proud of. But I'd like us to all consider that decisions in business and life are like that hand grenade. You're either going to hold it, drop it, or throw it. You're either going to make a good decision, a bad decision, or no decision, which is still a really bad decision, okay? And I know we're not all throwing real live hand grenades. Hopefully there's not some crazy team building exercise you're doing. But we are all holding on to hand grenade decisions. Right? Do we take this new promotion at work? Do we hire this new candidate A, B, or C? Do we get into a tough relationship or out of a really bad one? And if you think about it, there's so many variables that affect our ability to make good decisions, from access to education, to the diversity of our team, to where we do business. And if I can get everyone here today to make better decisions by just a small uptick, the results will be geometric, and you will be able to leap your career, your company, and your community forward. But here's the challenge, my friends. Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that kids, our darling sons and daughters, make a whopping 3,000 decisions a day. And if you have kids or have been around kids, we know they don't make the best decisions. This is my daughter. Okay, look closely. She just learned how to use scissors, and she's cutting off her little friend's top knot. All right, she was so proud, right, too, that she could use the scissors. Her friend's mom hasn't brought her back for a play date since we did that. High school kids don't make the best decisions. Any golfers out there like to golf every now and then? I hope you don't practice this way. These high school kids thought this was a great way to practice the golf swing. Who remembers those college days, right? I know I didn't make the best decisions in college, unlike these college kids, too. They said, let's give this a shot. Let's go, you know. And I had some people asking me where I'm from. I'm a local resident. I live right here. So don't let me see you taking your kids to school this way in the traffic, right? So, you know, adults with kids don't make the best decisions. So if kids make 3,000 decisions a day, how many decisions a day do you think busy professionals like us make? And here's the hint, right? It's a little more than 3,000. What do you guys think? How many? 5,000, 10,000? Going once, twice, right? Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that busy professionals like us make a whopping 35,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day. 35,000 decisions a day, 365 days a year. That's over 12 million decisions annually we're faced with. Our direct reports, colleagues, friends, family, clients are faced with. There's got to be room for improvement, as is evident. Now, you said, I live here, okay, so I did pull in to see this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. You know, I don't know who made the worst decision. I stayed and got gas. I should have split when I saw this guy. This decision leads to this decision, okay? And what I love about this is there's two really bad decisions. There's the guy taking the selfie in front of the fireball, and then there's the guy taking the picture of the guy about to get consumed. Figure out how that works. And then I saved the best for last. I call this next gentleman Darwin's favorite decision maker. Weekend just wrapped up, and you know, maybe you got to work on some stuff at your house, and hopefully you decided not to do what this guy did. Now, let's take a look here, okay? He's standing barefoot on an aluminum ladder in a swimming pool filled with water, working with plugged-in power tools on what appears to be an electrical system, but thank goodness he remembered to wear his safety goggles, right? Okay? You know, where are we doing that in the equivalent of our life? Where we're making all the wrong decisions, but making the right decisions that might not count that much. So the challenge is we don't have a simple system for making better decisions, especially when we're faced with that real number of 35,000 fast and furious decisions a day. And we all want to make better decisions. But if we can't pause to make better decisions and have a simple system, then that avoids regret. Regret that we didn't miss out on a big promotion, or that clinical trial didn't go sideways, or that you didn't fulfill your true life calling. Because if we're making decisions based on, say, for example, misguided cues, think what that person's saying, or the latest fad, you know, you're getting some new fad jammed down your throat, or what your gut is telling you, okay, you're not going to make good decisions. And as Mary said, I'm a cancer survivor. Somebody in a room like this, maybe 20, 30 years ago, made decisions to find the cure that cured my cancer, because I'm not in remission. For me, it was either chemotherapy, it was a treatment, or the coffin. So my goal is to help you make better decisions. That's what I'm passionate about. And I've studied decision-making in many different contexts. I've studied decision-making in life or death combat in the Marine Corps and in the martial arts. I've studied life or death combat and fighting for my own life and battling my personal demons of cancer. I've studied decision-making in the boardroom and in many different businesses, and I've studied decision-making at academic institutions. This is what I discovered. There's 5 decision-making traps that we all fall into, that our colleagues, clients, customers fall into. But there's 5 simple solutions to combat those decision-making traps so you can learn to make better decisions and leap your career, company, and community forward, because it boils down to, if we have great decisions, we have great executive leadership, great presence, and a great life. And by way of a business case example, I know we're here for the We Too sponsored me. This is a great story about a predominantly female-owned organization. The Watergate Hotel, home to our nation's capital, home to the Nixon scandal of the 1970s. Scandal is great for business, and this iconic property thrived throughout the 80s and 90s. And then there was an economic downturn in Washington, D.C. in the 90s and 2000s. The property was sold a couple times, didn't pay back taxes, and this iconic property closed in 2006. It sat empty for 10 years until a majority-owned female leadership team purchased the property and did an 18-month turnaround. And they were faced with these 5 decision-making traps that I'm going to share with you, but they used the system to either avoid the traps or get your way out of them, because we're all going to make bad decisions. We need to have a system to conquer them. They made the most mundane, boring things that we have faced with on a daily basis innovative and fun again. They embraced the scandalous nature of the 1970s. They hired the costume designer from the hit TV show Mad Men to design the outfits for the staff. They embraced the scandalous nature, making pencils and stationery memorable and unique. The 1-800 number for the hotel is 1-800-612-1972. June 12th, 1972 is the date of the Watergate break-in. Now, how great if you're that memorable at work. Well, I don't know, maybe you don't want to be remembered at work, right? Or that your colleagues, clients, customers remember you because you're making better decisions to be more innovative, that you have a system. Compare that to our friend Drew. Drew Greenblatt owns a company in the Midwest called Marlin Steel. It makes one product. Wire baskets for the bagel industry. 2 big bagel chains nationwide, Einstein Brothers and Bruegger's. Drew bought the company in 2003 as an investment. 17 employees, $1 million in revenue. Every year, the 2 bagel chains bought his wire baskets. Everything was great until it wasn't. A competitor came on the scene, and we deal with competitors in the healthcare space, right? A little country called China started making the same baskets for less than half the cost. Drew manufactured them for $12. China was getting them to his customer for $5. His company was days away from going closed. He's working the phone furiously, making horrible decisions without a system, but working harder and longer with more effort. Have you ever done that, right? We just work harder, look longer, work through it. And then Lady Luck smiled on Drew. He took a chance phone call from an engineer at aerospace giant Boeing. Engineer said, Drew, I looked you up online. I need 3 dozen custom-made wire baskets in 2 weeks to hold my machine parts. Can you get them to me? Drew said, well, if I make them for bagels, I can make them for you. It's going to cost, though, he did the calculations, about $29 per basket. The engineer said, fine, here's my credit card. $29 per basket was nothing compared to this multi-billion-dollar contract he had. So by chance, Drew discovered a whole new market for his product. Every manufacturer, from aerospace to high-tech, automotive, consumer products, need custom-made wire baskets to hold their machine parts. So Drew's company is still around, went up to 40 employees, 10 times revenue, $10 million, but he still makes horrible decisions. He may not be around a year from now, so who do we want to model our careers, company on? More of the responsible leadership that we saw at the Watergate with a system to handle decisions, especially big hand grenade decisions? Or do we want to rely on Lady Luck saving our career, saving our company, our retirement? So how can we? How can we be like those responsible female leaders of the Watergate that purchased that property? The Japanese have a concept, a word called mushin. This is my book, and hopefully there's extra copies here. Please grab one if you haven't found your way down. The word mushin means no mind, but I'd like you to think of it as no distractions or clarity. This concept of clarity was developed hundreds of years ago on the feudal battlefields of Japan, where the samurai warriors fought to the death with razor-sharp samurai swords. Life or death was decided in milliseconds. Practicing Mushin allowed you to clear your mind so it becomes like a calm, reflective body of water, free from the shackles of fear, ego, guilt, obligation, free to make the right decision at the right time, but especially when the pace is fast. This concept of Mushin is the clarity of the enlightened warrior. And we are all warriors fighting for our careers, fighting for Amgen, fighting for our community. And I want to arm you for decision-making battle, because whether you like it or not, that statistic of 35,000 decisions a day is real. The 5 traps I'm going to share with you are real, and we're all falling into them. So let's dive in and let's take a look at the 5 decision-making traps, but more importantly, how to conquer them. And the first trap is called the trap of clogged arteries, because what do we know about clogged arteries? If we have them in the body doesn't perform properly, and we can suffer a massive heart attack and die. Well, our decision-making arteries are clogged. We have all become the proverbial frog, bubbling, boiling in that cauldron of, electronic distractions. Now, it's not 35,000, but how many times a day do you think busy professionals like us in this room look at their smartphone? How many times a day do you think? Yeah, 100, 150? Okay, I have to check this stat every day because it continues to climb. Not kids, but every one of us sitting right here in this room. We check our smartphone on average about 180, 200 distracting times per day. Some heavy users will look at it over 1,000 distracting times per day. Professionals like us with a smartphone are connected to the office 15 hours per day. That means the very first thing you see when you wake up in the morning is your work emails, to-do items, calendars, social media posts. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you use your smartphone as an alarm clock each morning? Be honest. Yeah, what do we start to do right when we wake up? Yeah, absolutely. So recently, researchers at UVA, University of Virginia, wanted to test our dependency on distractions, our addiction even to distractions. And they simply asked professionals, male and female, to sit alone without any distractions for 15 minutes in a room. They sat at a table, much like you guys are at, and there was a little red button that they had to press to start the 15-minute timer. When they pressed the timer, it delivered a shock secretly so powerful that every participant said they would gladly pay money to never experience it again. Now, I know this is a We Too event. We got a lot of ladies in here. Ladies, here's the good news. Great job. Okay. Only about 56% of you could not do it. 56% of the female participants, knowing what would happen, chose to press that red button repetitively, shocking themselves. But wait. There's good news. Okay, guys, right? We can't be outdone by the ladies. What do you think the percentage of knucklehead guys was that couldn't leave well enough alone? Yeah, guess high. No, about 97%, almost all of them. Couldn't leave well enough alone and chose to press that red button thinking maybe it won't shock me now, right? Okay, but now think about what that's telling us. Right? Most of us can't sit alone for 15 minutes. What are we so afraid we're going to see in our mind's eye if left alone for 15 minutes with our thoughts? Are we going to see hand grenade decisions that we're holding on to? Hand grenade decisions that we've dropped? Hand grenade decisions that we're throwing the wrong way? We've got to win this losing battle against distractions. We have to unclog our decision-making arteries, otherwise we're already starting the losing race, with a cinder block around our ankles. So one simple way to do this is called the double 5 count. It takes 15, 20 seconds to do it. I did it while Mary was introducing me, and it works like this. Our physiology affects our ability to make good decisions. You shift your physiology, you adjust your body. So I want you guys to all do all this with me. Stand up, please. Stand up, shoulder width apart, each shoulder back. And you're simply going to take 5 deep breaths, but I want you to do it a certain way. By adjusting your physiology and taking deep breaths, you're going to increase oxygen. You're going to increase blood flow, circulation. You're going to shift your body so you start to get that swirl. So just take a big, deep belly breath with me with that stomach, not only using your lungs, but your entire body. Inhale and exhale. So we're going to do 5 deep belly breaths. Okay, expand that stomach and contract it. Now, you're all smart, successful people. The double 5 count, we're going to do it twice. But the second set of 5 breaths, I want you to visualize something. We're going to visualize our third place. Now, what is the third place? Okay. Well, where are the 2 places we spend most of our time? At work and where? At work for a lot of you, right? At work. I know. At work and at home. The third place is where you go to learn a new skill. It might be the yoga studio. It might be the martial arts academy. It might be church activities, Starbucks, something you do to de-stress, not be the boss. Relax, learn a new skill. Now, we can't just stop in the middle of the day and go work out, but you can visualize your ideal third place. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and for me, my ideal third place is this fall foliage, if you've ever been in these beautiful colors. So I'd like you to all do this. Take a look up there, those beautiful reds, yellows, a little bit of greens, orange. Now close your eyes and just listen to my voice. Okay, visualize those fall colors. Shoulders back, deep breaths. Expand that stomach. Inhale and exhale, deep. Smell the leaves changing. You know what I mean. Feel the chill in the air. Visualize kicking up those leaves as you walk, maybe by yourself or even with a loved one. 5 deep, and ignore that distracting cell phone. Go ahead and open your eyes while I keep talking. For some of you, it might be the mountains or our beautiful California beaches. But by focusing your mind on an ideal third place, you start to push out that squirrel that runs around, that we wake up in the middle of the night worrying about X, Y, and Z. You prime your decision-making pump, so you're arming yourself for decision-making battle. Otherwise, you're already starting 10, 20 minutes behind in the race. Please go ahead and have a seat for me. I recommend you do the double 5 count, and here's an opportunity, 3 times a day. Do it before you start work each morning. Again, takes 20 seconds to do. Do it after lunch when you're sleepy and you need to increase oxygen, blood flow, and circulation. And anytime you have a big meeting, you're going in for a performance review, you need to talk to somebody, take 15, 20 seconds to unclear your clogged arteries and start to win that losing battle against distractions. Now, once we've started to prime our decision-making pump, we've got to make some decisions. Trap 2, the Ferris Bueller trap. If we ever saw or remember the iconic 1984 movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one man's struggle to take it easy, what do we know about Mr. Bueller? Right? He lived from his heart, blew off a day at work, stole a car, had fun, lived life. He'd make a great CFO, a chief fun officer, right? But we don't want him looking the books. So this Ferris Bueller trap is a trap of bad balance. Decision-making is a balance between art and science, data and instincts, your head and your heart. And if you make decisions solely one way or the other, you're not going to make the best decision possible. Compare Mr. Bueller to his polar opposite, this guy, right? Dr. Spock, okay? Spock's all about data, right? Spock might be working in one of your labs as far as we know, too, right? And if we focus on only the data and you ignore that inkling, right? The numbers just don't work. You know there's something, even though the data looks good. Again, you're going to fall into that trap. And in a real-world business case study, in 1999, Excite was the #2 search engine behind Yahoo. Who remembers any of those back in the day? Yahoo, Lycos, web crawler, all of those. They had a chance in 1999 to buy this little startup called Google for $750,000. Larry Page, the founder of Google, wanted to sell it and go back to Stanford, finish his PhD. So the CEO of Excite, George Bell, had his team put the numbers together. They came back to him and said, George, we got to do it. This is a no-brainer. Larry Page had even showed them that if the Excite leadership used his superior algorithm, which was a part of the deal, they would increase their ad revenue by $150,000 per day. So the deal would pay for itself in less than 2 weeks. So George thought it through, said, yeah, this all looks good. I know if we buy it, it'll be branded Excite. I will run it. It'll be mine. But I have to swap out my algorithm for Larry's algorithm, and it really won't be my baby anymore. So he passed. He passed on buying Google for $750,000 in 1999. A year later, the tech bubble burst in 2000, when all those dot-com companies went out of business, including Excite. Does anyone want to take a guess at how much Google's worth today? Plus or minus, right? 650, 700 with a B, $billion. Oof. So how can we avoid making a fatal decision from our emotions, from our head, or looking at the data and we know it doesn't jive? We're getting our decision-making arteries primed for decision-making battle, clearing them with a double 5 count. And again, just think, right? What is your relationship to your technology? Do you use your phone or does your phone use you? Okay, so we're pausing for a second. Leads us here to finding better balance. And on the heels of Halloween, the solution is the very scary, the very delicious Reese's Peanut Butter Cup solution, okay? Now, what do we know about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups? It combines the best of both worlds. Chocolate plus peanut butter is my daughter's favorite food group, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. So, this is a writing exercise, and I know some of you have brought paper or something to work with. I really encourage you, if you have paper, if you only have your laptop, you can do this, but we're all going to do this together. This is a writing exercise. You're more creative when you put pen or pencil to paper. And so I encourage you to do this with a team, but for now we're going to do it one-on-one. And this is what I'd like you to do right now. I'd like you to pause and think right now. What is one decision that you've been putting off making for a couple days, a couple weeks, or a couple months even? All right, what's one hand grenade decision that you're holding on to? And maybe pick something easy. Where do we go for the holidays? Or you can pick a big decision. I know you're all putting off making a decision because I still do, and I practice this stuff all the time. My goal here today is to move you forward in one area of your life, to get you unstuck. Because I am a cancer survivor, and it's people like you that may make a decision today that cures another form of cancer, that has a breakthrough that down the road. So pick a decision that you're struggling with, or a bad decision that you made, and you don't see a way out. And then what you do is you draw our friend the Venn diagram, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, and you're going to label one side, everything that you're feeling, what your inklings are. And I use the example of perhaps you're faced with the opportunity to take a promotion here at Amgen. Okay? I'm debating whether or not I can take this promotion here at Amgen. Well, write everything that your gut's telling you, your instincts, your feelings. I like the new manager. I want a new change. I like the people I'd be managing. What all the feelings, emotions, inklings are, what your gut's telling you about that decision. As high achievers, don't suffer the tyranny of how. You're all trying to do it perfectly right now, and that's why you're not doing anything. Okay? Just start to brainstorm. Don't worry about the tyranny of how. The how will show itself. On the other side, you're going to write the data. Again, using my example of a promotion, just put the facts. Okay, well, that'd mean a 15K bump in salary. I'd have to manage 4 more people. I have to travel 15% more. Just the data. And what you're looking to do is generate the best ideas possible in the middle. And I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to do that right now. Go ahead. What's one decision you've been putting off making for a couple days, a couple weeks, or a couple months even? Decisions shape our destiny. Successful people do the things unsuccessful people won't. Successful people do the things unsuccessful people won't. 35,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day we're faced with. What's keeping you up at night? What is the hand grenade decision you're holding on to? We're going to continue to work on this for the next couple minutes, so don't worry about getting it perfect or solving it all right now. Done is better than perfect. Okay, all you high achievers, don't worry if you didn't get it done. We're going to keep working on this. So, as we start to combine the best of both worlds, we're going to start to see possibility. We avoid making a fatal decision based on our head or our heart. We start to generate and see things. It's called the power of visual display when we write things out. But we still have to dive a little deeper to be able to learn how to make the best decision possible. And that leads us to trap 3, called the Goldilocks Trap. And if you remember the child's fable, it was always about extremes. And that's what this trap is about. Goldilocks had 3 bowls of porridge, too hot, too cold. This one's just right. Chairs, beds, you name it. The trap of extremes in our decision making is we make a decision too quickly. Have you ever heard the phrase, you go extinct by your instincts? Or we make a decision too slowly. We all know that person that bottlenecks our projects, right? That they just take forever to move this forward. You give yourself too many options or not enough. The trap of extremes. And in a business case example, RCA, Radio Corporation of America, created in 1919, was the premier consumer electronic company of the 20th century. They were Apple before Apple. They were Samsung before Samsung. They were the first to mass produce and sell transistor radios, black and white TVs, color TVs. It was a great, innovative, fun, cutting-edge company to work for. For decades, they thrived. In the 1980s, they bought 3 companies in 4 years. They bought rental car giant Hertz. They bought publishing company Random House, books, magazines. And for good measure, they bought a frozen food company. Okay? Now, what does frozen foods, rental cars, and publishing have to do with consumer electronics? Zippo. Nothing. Okay? Their leadership team had gotten so big, so out of control, the right and left hand didn't know what the other one was doing. They made too many decisions too quickly, bought too many companies, over-diversified, and they were not armed for decision-making battle. GE was. GE swooped in and purchased them for pennies on the dollar. That iconic brand disappeared in 18 months. That would be like Apple, Samsung disappearing a year from now because they over-diversified. They fell fatal victim to that Goldilocks trap by making too many extremes in their decision-making. And we can all combat that with a real simple rule called the 3x15 rule. One choice is not a choice. 2 choices is just a dilemma, either this or that. You need 3 choices to have choice. Okay, 1 choice is not a choice. 2 is just a dilemma, either this or that. Either I take the job or I don't. You need 3 choices to have choice. So we have to give ourselves groups of 3s to work with, especially with big hand grenade decisions. If you introduce a 4th, the human mind is not built to hold it. It's going to push out one of your original ones. So you've got to get to 3. One way to do that is to set a timer. Now, you don't have to set a 15-minute timer for every decision. Many times you'll need a lot less. Sometimes you'll need more. Psychologically, the act of setting a timer pulls you forward, not with pressure, but in a way that helps you see things that you can't see. I use the Alexa dot. I'll just say, Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get my team going. And I'm going to do the same for you now. I'm going to set a timer for 60 seconds. So go back to that decision I asked you to pick. If you're still struggling with one, write one down now. Have you generated 3 choices? If you've only given yourself 1 choice, 2, or 5, start to narrow it down. Let's go back to that decision, take another look at where you're at. We get about 60 seconds. What's one decision that if we move you forward today will help transform your career, your company, and your community? What are you suffering about? What are you waking up in the middle of the night worrying about? Or pick something easy. Practice this on what you're going to have for dinner tonight. Try to work with groups of 3. And it's okay. If you have nothing, that means you're avoiding a fatal decision. Don't suffer the tyranny of how. If you're avoiding a solution because you don't know how you'll achieve it, just be patient with it. Perfection is the lowest standard. Don't try to be perfect as high achievers. Declare and fulfill. Declare what you'd like to do. Now, again, don't worry about getting it perfect as we keep working on that decision to move it forward. Again, maybe today somebody will make a breakthrough in your research or something that will lead to another cure. Now, I introduced these traps. Are you going to fall into all of them? No. Will some of them affect you more than others? Yes. You can use them bits and pieces. Some will affect you, some that won't. If we've gotten to 3, we still have to figure out how to make the best decision possible. That leads us to trap 4 and solution 4, the trap of day-old milk. And this is a trap of historical bias or assumptions in our decision-making. Because hopefully you haven't consumed spoiled milk. But if you have, you may never want to drink milk again, regardless of how fresh and how much your body's craving it. Your historical bias, your assumption is, ugh, all milk is bad. And in a classic research experiment called the Pike Syndrome, researchers took this freshwater fish. It's a pike. It grows to be about 1 foot long, 3 feet long. It's found in our Great Lakes. It eats other fish. It's got big teeth. It's aggressive, and it's always hungry. In the experiment, researchers took the fish and put it into a tank with deliciously docile goldfish. Now, in between the two, there was a removable glass partition. So when the pike was dropped in, it saw the goldfish and it attacked, but it kept running into the glass partition. It couldn't get to the goldfish. So it backed off after experiencing some head trauma, and then the researchers removed the glass partition. So there's nothing stopping the pike from gobbling up the goldfish. What do you think happened? Yeah. Ooh. The pike starved to death. It did nothing. Its historical bias, its assumption was, if I go over there and feast, I'm going to experience head trauma. And in a real-world example, Firestone did the same thing. Created in 1905, Harvey Firestone provided tires to horses and buggies. Befriended Henry Ford in 1910 and soon became the tire supplier of Ford Motor Company. Automobiles proliferated across the country in the 1900s. Ford built more auto plants. Firestone built more tire plants. For 8 decades, their only problem was keeping up with demand. Demand for our tires. Their historical bias, their assumption was there always will be demand for our product. In 1978, a little-known French company called Michelin introduced the radial tire to the US market. The radial tire was cheaper, safer, longer lasting, and would soon become a federally government-mandated standard. Firestone knew about the tires. They even had a radial tire plant, but they were all in. Their leadership team, their sole bias was there's always going to be a demand for our tires, until there wasn't. The federal government mandated that radial tires be a norm. Firestone couldn't switch their manufacturing in time and turn that big, unwieldy battleship that they had created. But Japanese tire manufacturer was armed for decision-making battle, was clear, saw what was coming, and again swooped in and purchased this iconic brand in 1988 for pennies on the dollar. Tens of thousands of employees lost their job, and Firestone exists only as a trademark with a few service centers around because their leadership team fell victim to that historical bias. The solution so we can avoid that with big decisions or little decisions is called the Pike Test, based on our friend the fish. And it's a filter question. It's a filter question you could run your decisions through, you can have your team run their decisions through, or you can do it together. And it's a 2-part question, but it works like this. What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? If, then it to death. If, then. What would have to be true for our Firestone tires to be the best choice? Well, if we keep everything all in on normal tires, then we better not have a competitor that has a cheaper, better, safer product. If we're all in on regular tires, then the federal government better not mandate that my product is obsolete. Can the federal government do that to one of your products? Yeah, right? Imagine if some young intern or some hard-charging millennial, right? We blame everything on millennials these days. Answered this question for the Firestone board and forced them to look at the results. Maybe they'd still be around today. What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice, if then? My example about if you have an opportunity to take a promotion. Well, what would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? Well, if I take this promotion, then it must meet these criteria. You can work your way through it. So I want you to go back because I'm going to have you go back to what you've been working on. And hopefully you've never muttered these words or you haven't had them said to you. Have you ever had someone come up to you and say, well, we tried that before? Yeah? It was, and insert your favorite excuse. Too expensive, too slow, didn't work. If you're talking about technology, we know technology changes overnight. Or another one of my favorites is, we've always done it this way. Right? You guys know what I mean? You've either had somebody say that or hopefully you haven't said that to somebody else. It crushes everyone's souls. The mission, the aspiration, the innovation. Okay? It crushes that. We should not be muttering those words anywhere in these here. So go back to that decision that you've been putting off making. Run what your solutions through this filter question, and let's see what you can come up with. Just try a little harder. Let's see if we can move you forward. Take about another 30 seconds. I'll set a timer. What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? What assumptions, what historical bias are getting in the way of you making the best decision possible? We always go to her house for Christmas. Maybe it's time to go someplace else. Maybe there's another way to go. We are all putting off decisions that will impact our lives. 35,000 decisions a day we're faced with. If we can get you to move that decision forward today, how great would it be to positively impact your career, your company, and this community that we all live in? Okay, high achievers, don't worry about getting it right. We've got to keep moving so we can get to those meetings that we have this afternoon. So we've looked at 4, and I saved the 5th and final trap and solution, the best for last. It's called the street gang trap, because what do we know about the mean streets of TO where we all are up here? Right, there's bad influences. And the street gang trap, the bad influences that come into our decision-making process are what you hear me talk about my hand grenade story. Fear, right? Imagine if I would have made a decision from fear holding that hand grenade. Ego, guilt, obligation, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Anger, right? How many of us have sent an angry text or an angry email that we wish we could unsend? Right? We've all done it. The street gang trap. And I'd like you to meet Coach Callie Sweeney. Coach Callie. I was talking to Mary earlier before she introduced me. She's from Michigan. She worked in Detroit for Ford before Amgen. Coach Callie was born in 1969 in downtown Detroit. Not a good time to be born. His parents were drug addicts. At 6 weeks old, 6 weeks, he was given away to a woman in the neighborhood. No adoption, given away. His parents were dead from a drug overdose a year later. Coach Callie bounced from house to house. By age 13, he had been shot and stabbed repetitively. He was illiterate. He didn't know what the word meant. He just knew he couldn't read or write. He was passed along to 11th grade. You know how that goes. And he finally dropped out of school then. He was 19 years old, somehow alive, when he had a chance encounter with an older half-brother, 5 years older, 24. But his older brother wasn't in a street gang. Callie was not only physically in a street gang, life of crime, drugs, violence, but also making every decision from the street gang trap. Decisions out of fear, ego, machismo, wanting to look good and impress. But his brother wasn't. His brother had a job. His brother had a home. Callie was still couch surfing. He didn't have a home. His brother had a girlfriend. His brother had a car, none of which Coach Callie had. And he asked him, he said, "Brother, what are you doing that I'm not?" Because we all have an indomitable will to improve. We all have an indomitable will to innovate and grow. And his brother simply said something that transformed his lives. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you, where you hear something at the right time in your life and it just clicks. You don't change, right? Because you can change back. I can change my clothes. When a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, is it going back? Yeah, no, a transformation is permanent. His brother told him, or actually showed him a picture. He said, "Baby brother, come here. I carry this with me everywhere I go." And he showed him a picture. He goes, they were about 12 years old. He goes, "This is me and my little friends. There are about 10 little boys in Michigan in the winter, so it's freezing cold. They were about to go sledding." He goes, "Baby brother, every one of these 10 boys here, there's me, have something in common that I don't. As of today, we're 24. They're all either dead or in jail right now." And Callie thought everyone he knew, everyone associated with him was either dead, in jail, on the way to jail, getting out of jail, and he knew if he didn't transform his life, he would be dead or in jail or dead or in jail too. So it took him 10 years, but from that conversation, he got his GED. He immediately got out of the gang and got an hourly job. He got a car, he got a house, he got a girlfriend. 10 years from that conversation, in 2007, he opened a nonprofit Detroit downtown youth boxing gym. But it's not a gym, ladies and gentlemen. It is a leadership development academy. It is an educational facility disguised as a gym. Coach Callie wanted to create a space where kids like him could go and learn. The kids, before they ever step onto the ring, have to get tutored for 2 hours by positive male and female role models, and 2 hours after their workout. 4 hours a day of tutoring, not only in school subjects, but on leadership, on volunteerism, on community service. He opened in 2007. 10 years later now, 2017, he opened up a 30,000 square foot facility in Detroit. He has 800 students and a 500 student waiting list. His high school graduation rate since 2007 to now, compared to the Detroit graduation rate, which anyone want to take a guess what the Detroit graduation rate is? 37%. I think I heard 37%. 10 years he's been open running his program. The kids that have gone through his program, 100%. He's batting 1,000. All of the kids have graduated. 98% of those boys and girls that graduate from his program, that graduate from high school, go on to graduate from college. How did he go from drug-dealing gangbanger to community stalwart? He didn't do it by himself, and that's where our fifth and final solution comes in. It's called the Fab Five. I'm sure most of us know who Tony Robbins is, the big, almost 7-foot-tall personal development guru, leadership guru. One of the men that trained Tony Robbins, one of Tony Robbins' mentors, is a gentleman named Jim Rohn. Jim had a great saying that I want to share with you called, "We are the average of the 5 people we spend our most time with." We are the average of the 5 people we spend our most time with. I want you to jot down right now, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Facebook friends don't count. Electronic friends don't count. Who are the 5 human beings you spend the most time with? Are there some people in there that need to go? All right? Yeah, true story though, I had to fire a good friend of mine. This guy, he was in the Marine Corps with me. We remained great friends. He had a great job, great family, great life, but was eternally pessimistic. You guys know what I mean, right? Now, I'm a cancer survivor. You think my glass is half full or half empty, right? I'm a very positive person. And have you ever got to the point where you don't want to take that person's phone call because they're bringing you down like an anchor? Guys, look, if you look underneath your chair right now, there's 30 ways to make horrible decisions, right? There's 50 ways to be miserable in your lives. But if you look for the good stuff, you're going to find that too. If you have those energy vampires in your life, fire them. Get rid of them. Now, here's the great thing about the Fab Five. I really encourage you to have a Fab Five for your business decisions, a Fab Five for your personal decisions. Because sometimes they won't overlap. Sometimes they overlap, maybe 1 or 2 people. But the folks you need to go to, a mentor, someone that you can be vulnerable with and tell them what you're struggling with, that you won't with your friends or you're all trying to look good here. You need a Fab Five for business decisions and personal decisions. Here's a great thing. To add innovation and creativity, you can also introduce historical figures or made-up figures for creativity, okay? You can have superheroes be on your Fab Five. What would Wonder Woman do or what would Batman do? You could have musicians, probably the real Fab Five, not these guys, but or your favorite tech billionaire. Now, don't talk to your invisible friend because that would be weird, but it is a creativity exercise to ask what such and such would do. Now, in the short amount of time, because we are going to start to wrap up, we can't work on developing the Fab Five, but just you writing down who you spend the most time with. And I did this, and I had a woman come up to me and say, my cats, my assistant, and they just realized, that they were struggling to come up with 5 human bodies. Now, I'm sure you don't have that thing, but please, if you want to be the best clinical researcher, if you want to be the best salesperson, if you want to be the best HR person, and you're not hanging around other superlative performers, you're not taking advantage of those resources. Now, I'm going to send all this information to you. I know I've shared a lot with you electronically. Don't look at those distracting text messages, but if you want to snap a photo with your cell phone, you can. I encourage you as we wrap up to continue writing notes, because if you're writing, you're remembering. But I learned to make better decisions that really impacted my destiny, that impacted my leadership and my executive presence and ultimately my life a really, really hard way. It took me getting cancer. So I had never been sick a day in my life when I was diagnosed with testicular cancer at age 34. I caught it early, and besides having to put up with some hilariously humiliating jokes from my friends, everything was good. I had my right testicle removed. There was no spread into my body. And I was like a very clinical, perfect case study. I had to undergo what's called aggressive observation. So I had chest, abdomen, and pelvis CAT scans and blood tests every month. I am a barium connoisseur. Hopefully you've never had to drink that stuff. I'll tell you right now, there is no good flavor. Maybe that's something you guys could work on creating, like better tasting, so I got this beat. We're cool. Month 1, 2, 3, 4 goes by, and then, it wasn't, right? And my oncologist walked in and said, "Hey, Michael, cancer spread to your lungs, so we have to start chemotherapy." And, I'm sure we all have a personal story with cancer. I mean, heck, look what you guys do here, right? Families or friends, or maybe there's any cancer patients or survivors here. I'd love to talk to you, but all cancers are different. Cancer treatments are different. In my case, I had a very aggressive cancer that had metastasized to my lungs. And so radiation wouldn't work, and I had to have a very aggressive chemotherapy. If you're aware, most people with chemotherapy go in once a week, once every 10 days. I went every day, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., 6 hours every day for 3 months. Now, everything you hear about chemotherapy is true. The hair falls out, right? And you become unnaturally thin, gaunt, like the skin takes on like a gray pallor. Like you literally become like a walking zombie. I mean, I've shared with my friends, I just passed my cancer-free anniversary, but 3 months, and I had to undergo one more treatment. At the end of those 3 months, you're left pretty spent, and then I had to have surgery to remove half of my left lung, where those dead tumors were. And it was a success, right, but at a cost. At the height of my physical prowess, at age 34, I was left crippled in a wheelchair, unable to do anything by myself, anything. My mom was taking care of me at age 34. But the body is an amazing machine, the spirit, the indomitable spirit. A few months after that, I was able to get up out of the wheelchair and sort of just shuffle around my home. About almost a year later, I could walk normally. After that, I went for a first jog, and then a few years after that, I ran my first marathon on 1.5 lungs for a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society, and thank you guys, thank you very much. Side note, I usually don't time it this well, but my 15-year cancer-free anniversary was Saturday, November 3rd. But the reason, thank you guys, thank you. The reason I share this story is it took a life-threatening illness like cancer to show me where I was falling into all of these decision-making traps that I shared with you. And I don't want you guys to have to suffer the same way. You talk about responsiveness. Okay, I had a two-way pager back in the day, so I was a slave to my technology. My technology was using me. I had become successful in my corporate life and in my own businesses, but I had become successfully miserable along the way, and I don't want that for you guys. I don't want you to have to suffer through a life-threatening illness, abuse drug and alcohol, go through a tough divorce because you're working 36 hours a day, or you're making horrible decisions, because that number I shared with you, 35,000 decisions a day, is a real number. We're faced with it, and the traps I shared with you are real. You fall into them whether you realize it or not, but the solutions work. And it's a practice. You start making better decisions. You move that decision forward. So somebody in here makes a breakthrough in their research that saves more lives like me. And as we wrap up, one final story to share. Who remembers these iconic bottles from Old Spice, okay? Started in 1936. They had 1 cent, and I don't even know if you want to call it a cent, right? It's called Glacial Falls. And their marketing plan, one sentence, like, to sell to the distinguished older gentleman. Anyone buy those gift sets for the distinguished older gentleman in their lives, right? Yeah, I did. I bought it for my father. Now, everything was going great. Profits were soaring. The company was fantastic. In 2008, though, there was a big downturn. Old Spice saw their profits eroding. What competitor came on the scene that was eating their lunch? Remember? Yeah, Danielle, right? All those cool boys spraying themselves down with Axe. And literally, this iconic company, around since 1936, were days away from closing their doors. They had to make some big decisions. And they started with the Fab Five, which is what I shared with you at the end today. They hired this amazing creative firm called Weedman and Kennedy that helped them navigate the traps, but especially Trap 2, the Ferris Bueller trap, the trap of bad balance. The CEO was emotionally attached to these porcelain bottles. They were too expensive to manufacture. Nobody wanted them. And if that, like the CEO of Excite, who passed on buying Google, right? If he didn't have the Fab Five to help him get over that, Old Spice would be gone. So in 2010, they rolled out Old Spice Swagger. And here's the hilarious thing. Now, I know you guys sell a variety of amazing products. If you do not have the word old in your product, you're okay. Like, these guys still have the word old in their product. There's the ship, and it's the same smell. But they made it fun. They made it innovative. They made great decisions to make themselves laughable and memorable. And I'm sure you've seen these commercials. They're all over this. I don't use Old Spice, but there's a recent one, the woman speaking all in French and names her dog Old Spice. They're memorable. They're fun. So in 2010, they rolled this out, and they had a 2-year goal of doubling sales with that elusive market of millennial males ages 14 to 34. And because they made better decisions, because they rolled this out, they quadrupled sales, right? Now, how happy would your leadership be if you quadruple sales instead of just double sales, right? So I want that for us. I want you to get your swagger back, your decision-making swagger. Okay, I want you armed for decision-making battle, so you're on the forefront of healthcare technology, and you're making better decisions that lead to better breakthroughs. So as we wrap up, I'm going to leave you with a couple gifts. Hopefully you all can get a book. There's a lot more information in the book to help you not become successfully miserable. But all the material I shared with you and a lot more is available on my Keynote resource page. All the 5 traps, solutions, action plans. There's nothing salesy about it. You don't need to give me an email address. No one's going to sell you anything. Remember, my motives are selfish. All right, I still go for cancer checkups. I still want you guys making the best decisions possible that leads to these medical breakthroughs. All right, so go. It's called the law of diminishing return. You're going to leave here excited, and maybe some of you have made a big decision here, but life gets in the way, and you're going to forget it. Last but not least, there's an envelope in front of you. I'd like you to write a letter to yourself. Hopefully you have some paper. I'd like you to write these 4 things. I'm going to mail this letter to you in 2 weeks. Because like I said, you're going to forget what we talked about. You're going to get distracted. You're going to go back and have a million other meetings. And as good intentioned as you are, you're not going to get into action. So please take a second to jot these 4 things down. Jot down the resource page again. So 2 weeks from now, when you get this letter from me, I'm just going to mail it to you. You'll be able to go back and access these decision-making benefits. The 3 Ds. What decision are you moving forward today? What are you going to do about it? And by when? What date? Take a second to jot that down. Write the envelope to yourself, from yourself. I'll mail it to you in 2 weeks. You'll get it as a reminder. Take a minute to do that. And I know we have meetings to go to, so I'll keep talking as you jot this down. Often when we're faced with these hand grenade decisions, whether they're big hand grenade decisions or little hand grenade decisions, and guys, if you want to just pass them to the end, we'll collect them at the end, and I'll make sure you get them 2 weeks as a reminder to keep you in action, to keep you doing the great work that you're doing, to hopefully create more patients like me that have a better quality of life because of your research. But when we're faced with some of those big decisions, we can wrap more and more fear, sometimes to the point of paralysis. But when you pause and start to practice the system, you get your decision-making swagger back, and you're armed for decision-making battle. So, Vanessa, thanks for making a good decision, for having me up here. We too. Good luck, everybody, and I'm going to stick around if anyone would like to come and chat.